is famous for its legendary subway system, with millions of passengers riding the rails 24/7 every day of the year. And there are some locals who would tell you they know every inch of New York's 850 miles of subway line. But for over a century, there have been rumors of a ghost tunnel, a long-lost subway line that predates even the oldest subway tunnels in the world. And that's how it remained, lost and forgotten, until a gutsy group of urban explorers finally found the holy grail of New York City's underworld.
Most people think London has the oldest subway in the world. But New York actually opened the first subway tunnel almost 20 years before London's underground went public. The tunnel runs 30 feet beneath Brooklyn's Atlantic Avenue, but it's much more than a relic of old New York. The tunnel is filled with legends. Here, bootleggers stashed their moonshine, an assassin hid his long-lost diary, and the country's most famous secret society, the Freemasons, laid the foundations of the world's oldest subway station. Since building a train tunnel in 1844 underground was a huge project that took money and political clout, the Freemasons were the only ones who could pull it off. In 1980, an urban explorer named Bob Diamond unearthed the tunnel and its secrets. Right here? He was going to show me his amazing discovery, but first we had to stop Brooklyn traffic.
So this is it right here?
This is it.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the way in.
All right, how are we gonna get this open?
Okay, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go and open this up. I'm gonna pry this open a little bit from this end.
Okay, and I just
Then
slip
you're
that
gonna,
in?
yeah, you're gonna take this hook, get it underneath, and then pass it back to me.
Okay. All right, we got electricity, huh?
Now we
Power,
got
anyway.
electricity.
And so is this legal, what we're doing here?
Well, it looks like it's a little bit guerrilla, but it's actually totally legal. I've had
All
a
right.
contract with the city of New York for 20 years to do this.
All right, follow you down?
Okay, yeah,
All right,
follow me in.
Let's go. Going here underneath the streets of Brooklyn, New York, into the oldest subway tunnel in the world. How cool is that? So, wait, so this whole thing looks like it was filled in with dirt.
It was. The dirt came across all the way across like this. So I had about this much space to crawl on my belly between that manhole cover and the concrete wall.
So you're in the pitch dark.
In the pitch dark with an air tank on my back.
Oh,
because
really?
we didn't know if there was any air in here.
Yeah.
And it was just like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Bob pieced together the tunnel's probable location through a newspaper article from 1911 and a map from 1868. He found himself crawling in a dirt-filled tunnel beneath Brooklyn's streets. So he and some friends cleared out 100 cubic yards of dirt by hand. Bob believed the only thing standing between him and the tunnel was a concrete wall, so he set up to blast away the last obstacle.
Wow, so you had to blast out this hole here.
Yeah, the casting was there, but it was plugged in with bricks and cobblestones that were cemented in.
All right. Oh, man.
That's pretty big,
This
huh?
is cool.
You know
It's huge.
Oh, yeah, it just keeps going.
Whoa.
Now you can see how big it actually is.
Sure.
The New York subway system officially started in 1904, but this tunnel was its dry run 60 years earlier. At half a mile long, it was the end of the line for the Long Island Railroad at the East River. But because of the train cars' poor brakes and the dangerous traffic up above, the tunnel had nowhere to go but underground.
This is brand new technology
Right.
in this time.
Right.
They had no subway yet.
Right.
Even in London, they had no
No.
subway. This
No.
is way before everything.
Way before, this was innovation. What they basically did is they took elements of the 19th century industrial revolution and combined it with Roman civil engineering techniques, because the Romans built things similar to this for highway underpasses 2,000 years ago.
All right.
2,000-year-old Roman engineering met the Industrial Revolution in a method called cut and cover. Instead of mining a tunnel under New York, workers were hired to rip out the street with picks and shovels. Once they had dug a ditch 34 by 32 feet and a half-mile long, They brought in strong Manhattan bedrock for the walls, 6.5 feet thick at the bottom, tapering to 4.5 feet thick at the top. Finally, a brick-arched ceiling was put in place, and the street was relaid over it. Today, the construction is so strong, the brick's strength not only supports the streets, cars, and trucks above, it could hold 6 times that and not collapse.
How do you build a tunnel like this before they'd ever done this?
Well, you need to have the right people involved. First, we had Cornelius Vanderbilt, who was in charge of the construction.
Right.
Then you had a crew of 900 Irish laborers, which were more effective than steam shovels. And of course, you couldn't do anything in New York State without the Freemasons back then. They ran everything.
The secretive Freemasons have long been linked to the founding of our country. George Washington and Ben Franklin were both Masons. From military forts to federal buildings, even the design of our nation's capital, Freemasons controlled the planning and building of our nation's infrastructure. In fact, New York's governor in the early 1800s, DeWitt Clinton, was a Grand Master of the Freemasons, and he was influential in starting projects like the Erie Canal and New York's Board of Education. Top New York City officials and engineers were also Masons, and they played an important role in getting this groundbreaking project to become reality.
For example, the person who took over the Federalist Party and the Freemasons after DeWitt Clinton died was Rufus King, who was a signer to the U.S. Constitution. His son, John A. King, was the person who got the idea to build the Long Island Railroad to connect New York with Boston.
In 1859, corruption brought the whole project down. A greedy real estate developer had the tunnel declared a public nuisance, which allowed him to collect money from surrounding landowners to pay for its demolition. But instead of destroying it, he simply put up 2 walls, one at each end, pocketing the rest of the money, nearly $130,000, the equivalent of $3 million today.
So where we came in, that filled-in part, that's where he plugged up that end.
Correct.
And behind here is where he plugged up this end.
Correct.
So I'm pushing on New York City real estate corruption right here.
You got it right in the palm of your hands.
For 150 years, it was the breeding ground for all sorts of scandalous tales. The tunnel was supposedly the headquarters of a whiskey bootlegger at the turn of the century, and a dumping ground for Murder Incorporated, the infamous New York Mafia in the 1920s.
We found some smashed up 5-gallon whiskey jugs and a piece of pottery that said Daniel Cavanaugh, liquor dealer, 20 Atlantic Street.
Really?
I looked him up in the old city records, and he had a liquor store at the mouth of the tunnel near Columbia Street.
So he's brewing his stuff down here.
But the biggest mystery has yet to be solved. Behind this second wall is the tunnel's old train platform, a platform Bob believes holds an abandoned locomotive that may contain an assassin's secret. After John Wilkes Booth shot President Lincoln, he was hunted down and killed. Investigators found his diary on his dead body. In May 1865, a conspiracy trial was held, but Booth's diary was conspicuously absent. It was later rediscovered in a War Department file. Only 18 pages were mysteriously missing.
So you go past here,
Right.
200 feet, what do you find?
A station platform from 1844.
No way.
Yeah, they found a portal area made out of marble and granite, and there's probably a steam locomotive buried back there.
You have proof of this?
Oh yeah, the same documentation that I used to find the tunnel says they left a locomotive back there.
It's suggested that the missing pages of Booth's diary were hidden in a tunnel near an abandoned locomotive. The long-forgotten train car under Atlantic Avenue would have been the perfect location.
Bootleggers, prohibition, Murder Incorporated, all kinds of nefarious dealings. This is subterranean New York. Really, this rubble is the building blocks of New York, this whole tunnel of the Freemasons, the proof of their involvement in creating our biggest city. Never mind our whole country. They could get together, create something that had never been tried before, a subway underneath the streets of New York. And this is what goes on to inspire bigger and better and greater projects down the road.